Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a brand new session of Easy Dharma for the New Normal. So, today we're going to start something very new, and which is not that new actually, because this is a special teaching by, you know, it's from this book, but it's available on Rimchi's blog. I think it will be posted on the link, and it's actually a teaching on what's called the wheel of sharp weapons. All right, so it's brand new because I'm going to start a series, just like Pastor Nirал. He's fond of series, so now it's I've taken on the idea. So before I continue, let me see who is on. I have to refresh my page to see you guys. I don't see Kechara. Uh-oh. Give me a moment. Where is Kechara? Okay, never mind. I will see it somewhere. Kechara. I still don't see Kechara. Ah, found it. Okay, I see myself now. Finally. All right. Good evening, Ann Ong, Tata Oyen. Oops. Moon Ting and Pastor Tak Ming, David Chu, Esther Go, Jillian, Pastor Hani, Kwang Ming, and so forth. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to first, of course, give you a background about this teaching. All right. The first time I heard about the wheel of sharp weapons was many years ago. Somewhere about probably 10, 12 years ago. Rimshi gave a little retreat and a Zambala teaching, and he weaved in a teaching on the wheel of sharp weapons into a Zambala. It's actually a retreat. All right, if I remember correctly, it was a 3 day retreat, and then every day we would go and then we receive teachings, and then we do a little Zambala session, puja together, a retreat. So it was, I remember it was 2 to 3 days. It was very nice. And that was the first time I heard about the wheel of sharp weapons. And Rimji gave a background of the text and the law of karma, because the text has got everything to do with it. All right. So the wheel of sharp weapons is actually written, composed in verse form. So I will be reading the verses. All right. And altogether there's, let me see, 119 verses. Okay. So I will not be able to cover everything tonight, that's for sure. Probably in 4 to 5 weeks, right? So we will read a couple a day, and more than a couple. I think I was thinking somewhere between 15 verses today, and then we'll talk and discuss on each verse, and then you can ask me questions. I'm dumbfounded. Perhaps Pastor Nirao can help, or anyone, any of you guys are very, the other pastors was online, or anyone else can answer. No problem. We are on this together, and in this learning adventure. All right. So the text, the teaching, the wheel of sharp weapons is about 1,000 years old, and it was descended from Atisha's time. And Atisha, as you know, especially Lamrimpas out there, people who study Lamrim, Atisha actually traveled to Indonesia, remember? And he had a teacher in Indonesia, and he received one of the teachings he received was the wheel of sharp weapons. All right, and it's from a master called Dhammarakshita. So what's interesting is the teaching was, the setting of the text was in the jungle. When I read it, you understand what I mean, because usually in most texts, the description of samsara is always usually an ocean, but this one is a setting is a jungle. So we will be reading about it. And one more thing about this that I need to tell you is that it is a mind training teaching. Okay, so it is each verse, the meaning of each verse, of all the verses, is meant to develop the mind. It meant to transform the mind, make you think, make you realize, come to a realization of why we're experiencing certain things and what's the cause of each experience and how to overcome that, what kind of mental attitude you should cultivate in order to overcome that experience, negative experience, of course, and the negative karma. So, and ultimately, it also tells you what's the basis of all your negative karma, which is the self-cherishing mind. And that's why it's a mind training teaching. It is to develop the mind. It is actually to develop bodhicitta, or great compassion. All right. So let me see. There's a lot of other people come on, which is from Ming Liang. Sorry, Ling Miang, Kinho, Sharon, Clancy, Shuning, Cynthia, Ngui Ling. I think you're quite new. I haven't seen you before. Pastor Gimli, Phoebe Yong, King Hoi, Mr. Lam, Martin, Karen, Mr. Lam, Dr. Hang, Martin, Miao Ki, Yinping, all of you guys, thank you very much for joining me. Today we'll be going a little bit more traditional into a very special teaching called the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. All right, so let's, without further ado, so we only have about an hour. Let's make the best of it, and we should discuss on each verse. All right. Let me turn to the page. Yeah. Okay. The title is called The Wheel of Sharp Weapons, and it is called a Mahayana training of the mind. Mahayana means to develop compassion, all right? By Dharma. The name of this work is The Wheel of Sharp Weapons, effectively striking the heart of the foe. I pay heartfelt homage to you, Yamantaka. Your wrath is opposed to the great lord of death. In jungles of poisonous plants strut the peacocks. Though medicine gardens of beauty lie near, the masses of peacocks do not find gardens pleasant, but thrive on the essence of poisonous plants. In similar fashion, the brave bodhisattvas remain in the jungle of worldly concern. No matter how joyful this world's pleasure gardens, these brave ones are never attracted to pleasures, but thrive in the jungle of suffering and pain. Okay, so let's talk about it. Right, the first part, it tells you the title. Usually traditional texts, all sorts of sutras, tantras, usually it starts off by telling you the title, what's it called, and then sometimes it's when it's translated, it will tell you in Tibetan and in Sanskrit what's the name of the text, and then it usually always starts with a refuge to set the motivation, paying homage first to the Buddha. So sometimes it's Namo Manjushriye, Namo Manju Goshaye, or Namo Avalokiteshvara. You know, that means I take refuge in Manjushri. And when you take refuge in Manjushri, I'm giving you this teaching. So you seek the refuge of refuge and blessings of the Buddha first, or an enlightened being, or a bodhisattva. Then they go into the text. All right. That's why first this master, obviously his idam is Yamataka. So he pays homage to Yamataka. He takes refuge in Yamataka. And then he goes on to explain that Yamataka is fierce. He's a bull-faced idam with many arms, carrying all sorts of weapons. But his wrath, his fierceness is opposed to the Lord of Death. Okay, who's the Lord of Death? The Lord of Death is Mara. Mara represents impermanence, death and impermanence. Okay? If any questions, shoot away, you know. The language, you know, one thing I want to explain further. A lot of the texts by many High Lamas and many Indian Pandits are written in verse form, meaning it's like poetry. So they tend to do that because I've begin to realize this because when I was speaking, rather when Rinpoche was telling over the years, Rinpoche said one thing is interesting because he said that he views things in terms of pictures, in terms of sounds, in terms of no, he said pictures first. So pictures, he viewed things in terms of. I think I've written something on this before, like on one of the tales my lama told me, something like that. So anyway, he views things in terms of pictures, and then from that he'll tell you, a teaching or an explanation, or he'll develop it from into something else, like an idea for the organization and all that. So I think a lot of the high lamas and pandits do that, and I've been to a creative writing class before. Interesting, yeah, no creative writing. So what happened was they told me one of the key things of creative writing is that when you can connect words with meanings, with pictures and sounds and colors. So when you weave them, then you create a very visual and very engaging piece of writing where you connect sounds, tastes, sights, all the visuals all together. Then you create a very compelling piece of writing that engages the reader. So I think high lamas, that's what they do. So that's why when they write in verse form. A lot of what they write comes from their attainments, comes from their realizations. So when it comes in visuals, and from the visual, they give you a teaching based on the visual, because the visual is not just a picture in their mind. It is directly from their realization. All right. So I thought that was interesting. That you might enjoy knowing about. And so I feel that when I read this, because this master obviously meditated a lot in the jungle. Obviously, he's surrounded by, the forest in the jungle in where is it? Indonesia. Okay, so there's all sorts of animals, wild animals, and so he equated the jungle to be like samsara. Samsara is our existence. Let's put it this way. There's many definitions for that, of course. It's 6 realms of samsara, human realm, all that. But I'm not talking about so much. I'm talking of just our existence. All right. So here he gives a visual of bodhisattvas. Okay, in order to give you a background for his teaching, he gives you a visual of the bodhisattva as a peacock. And the peacock, what it does is it thrives in the jungle. It thrives. So it says here, in jungles of poisonous plants, strut the peacocks. That means the samsara is full of poisonous plants. Means what? A lot of what do you call it? What's the word? Illusions. A lot of negative emotions, a lot of people engaging in negative actions, a lot of negative karma, a lot of deception, illusion. Like when things are nice, we think you have a lot of good karma. Actually, it's not. So here he's talking about samsara, because we all are attached to samsara. We all are attached to a lot of pleasant things, but pleasant things, comfortable things, good things that we think is good, like money and material items, is good for us, right? Ultimately, it's not. Ultimately, serves on a very simple level. It serves as a distraction. Yeah, we crave for it, we want it, we are attached to it. On the ultimate level, it actually increases our suffering, because it does not get, our attachments never get lighter. If we don't do Dharma, we don't contemplate, right, our attachments do not get lesser and lesser. It gets more and more. Every time we indulge in our attachments, it increases, because we're reinforcing it. So when we do Dharma, when we learn, we meditate, we contemplate, we do pujas, we accumulate merit, what happens is we lessen the attachment. We lessen and lessen and lessen. So what happens is, then from our practice, from lessening, from our practice, from our contemplation, from our study of the Dharma, accumulation of merit, purification, of course, what happens is our attachments become to lessen. Because immediately, some of us intellectually know attachments are not good for us. The the beautiful car, one car is not enough, another car. And then after the second car, we're dying because, of the repayments, especially now, in the current economic situation. So, okay, hi, very nice. Thank you, Christy Flores. I hope I got your name right. It's your favorite Dharma book. Very nice. Maybe you can share as well, Thank you very much for joining us. So generally, this is what samsara is. So, and this teacher, this master, equated samsara with the jungle. So that's interesting because generally, I think in the Lamrim, it's usually the ocean. Usually the visual of the ocean is used, and we all like fishes or something like that. So the idea of the ocean was because the waves tosses and turn, and so it's very unpredictable because the current of waves is just like karma. So we don't know what kind of karma would arise, and in the jungle it's also, we don't know what's behind the leaves, the trees. It could be a poisonous animal. The plants are poisonous. But in this one, it's not specifically about that. It's more talking about the bodhisattvas. All right? So we will go on. And then it says that in jungles of poisonous plants threat the peacocks, though medicinal gardens of beauty lie near. The masses of peacocks do not find the gardens pleasant, but thrive from the essence of poisonous plants. In similar fashion, the next verse explains the first. In similar fashion, the brave bodhisattvas, they're courageous, they're brave, remain in the jungle of worldly concern. No matter how joyful this world's pleasure gardens, these brave ones are never attracted to pleasures, but thrive in the jungle of suffering and pain. So what does that mean? So bodhisattvas are specially evolved beings. They are beings, they are like lamas, like evolved beings who have generated compassion, right? So what happens is why they work for all sanctioned beings is from their realization. Is because what kind of realization it is that all the pleasures in this world that that all beings could have focused on, even the Buddha, he could have stayed in his palace and remain a prince and eventually become a king. Actually, the Buddha's story is interesting because he is a bodhisattva, and his story is a reflection of what a bodhisattva ideal is. Because he was a prince, right? The Buddha Shakyamuni, he was a prince. He was the crown prince. That means he was the successor to the king. And in according to prophecy, he had the karma to be a world monarch, a world conquering monarch. So he has such power and karma to ascend to to control a lot of people, to amass. When you control a lot of people, means what? As a king, means you have a lot of wealth. Also, you have a lot of problems, but that's not besides the point now. And so what happens is, and when you have a lot of wealth, you have a lot of concubines. You have a lot of people coming, paying homage, giving you money, giving you gifts, giving you jewelry, giving you wealth, bribing you, giving you lots of things, whatever you want, whatever you can command, you have it in those days. So, but he's a bodhisattva. He realized the faults of having all those things. He realized ultimately that will not save you, do not save him. He saw through it. He saw that all this happiness is only transient. It's only temporary. It's only for this life. Because at the point of death, all the wealth cannot be carried to your next life. He realized that. All the power cannot save him from death. All the power cannot save him from being ill in this life. All the power cannot save his father, his mother. So, for him, he saw through it and he realized that that is not what he's seeking. So he wanted to find another way. And that's his powerful imprints of 3 aeons of practicing. So the merits surface as a bodhisattva. And just like the peacock, instead of going to the medicinal plants and eating and becoming, enjoying itself, he went into the poisonous plants. And as he eats the poisonous plants, as he lives on the poisonous plants, the poison does not go into him and kill the peacock. Instead, it went into Well, there's further visuals. I need to read them further. Okay, but generally it does not stay in the among the delicious, yummy, sweet medicinal plants. It went into the bitter, poisonous plants. All right. So bodhisattvas, instead of working for themselves, working for their enjoyment, working for the pleasures, the power, and the money of this life, they work for the welfare of all beings. Form, okay, in a visual of this great master called Dhammarakshita. He's Indonesian. Oh, okay. Thank you. You spoke of, let me see, Tenzin Jamkar. Although the Lord of Death is represented as a demon, is it not true that it is actually the force of our own deeds and mental affliction? Actually, no, not so much as our deeds and mental affliction. It's specifically, Mara is specifically symbolic of death and impermanence, specifically those two. All right, that's what I've been told. All right, it's not so much as the force of karma, which deeds means karma, and mental affliction and delusions. It's more of death and impermanence. It's representative of that. And then, let me see. Tenzin Jamkar says, you spoke of samsara as an ocean. Is that why Tilopa, being a fisherman, is fishing samsara beings out of the ocean of samsara? He was a fisherman, but I don't know about that, as in but Tilopa was one thing that's interesting about Tilopa was as he's a Mahasiddha, okay, he's attained high attainments. So what happened was he's always depicted with a fish, and he eats the guts of the fish. Is it the guts of the fish, as far as I remember, and through his attainments, it's all an illusion actually, because after he eats them, he throws the carcass and they turn to life again. That's what I remember of the story of Tilopa. So he actually doesn't really eat it. It's just an illusion that he created. Why? He has a special reason for it. He's a Mahasiddha. I need to study his story, then I'll let you know. All right. If you have any other questions, no? But generally, yes, in the Lamrim, I always remember it's always the ocean, and most prayers, and always the ocean of samsara. And even, the visuals in the Lamrim talking about the preciousness of the human life, right? It's always a turtle in the ocean, all right, surfacing. I mean, that's one vision. And usually it's equated. But this one is unusual because this one is in the visual of samsara is the forest. But the visual is not important. It's what it means, what it represents is important, okay? Because it's a teaching. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, the next one is nice. We spend our whole life in a search for enjoyment, yet tremble with fear at the mere thought of pain. Thus, since we are cowards, we are miserable still. But the brave bodhisattvas accept suffering gladly and gain from their courage a true, lasting joy. Now, desire is the jungle of poisonous plants here. Only brave ones like peacocks can thrive on such fare. If cowardly beings like crows were to try it, because they are greedy, they might lose their lives. How can someone who cherishes self more than others take lust and such dangerous poisons for food? If he tried like a crow to use other delusions, he would probably forfeit his chance for release. Okay, this is interesting. Where was I? Okay, so on the third verse, it says that we spend a whole life in search for enjoyment. We do. We're looking for a job so we can pay for our, delicious food, pay for our car, pay for our house. And then when we have a house, we want a bigger house, we want a bigger car. Then also, of course, we want a partner, we want a husband, a wife, no, a boyfriend and girlfriend first, then a husband and wife. And then we will pay for holidays, then we want to pay for kids, then we pay for the kids' education. We are paying, we are always, we're always looking for something to spend, to enjoy ourselves. When the moment we wake up, part of our lives is spent working through. Part of our lives is also spent on Facebook looking for some sort of distraction, some exciting video to watch, some new movie, some new excitement, something exciting. So we're always looking for some sort of gratification one way or another. More delicious food, better restaurants, better holiday, better places for holiday, although these days probably not. We're always looking for something to gratify our senses all the time. But when we encounter something scary like the situation we are in right now, all of us know, all over the world we're experiencing right now, which is the COVID pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the coronavirus. And different people are taking it very differently. Some people they dare not even step out of the house, and every 5 minutes they're spraying their hands with disinfectant. The moment they touch something, they're so panicked. They have multiple layers. They cover themselves. When the moment they're forced to, because we have to buy food, right? So they have to walk out of the house. It's like spaceman time, It's like covered in a huge suit, going out like Darth Vader, climbing into the car, getting to the supermarket. This is all funny, but the thing is, it represents the fears that we have right now, which is very real. I'm not denying that the risk and the danger is real, but everybody takes it very differently. Some people, they just whatever, they're going out party, they're going out shopping, they're going eating, they hang out together, they're going for they're protesting. I've even seen some of them protesting the social distancing movement. The call by the government for, different countries have a different word for it, but I think it's generally known as social distancing. And everybody takes it very differently. So there's a lot of fear. So my point in saying this is, no matter how, wait, where am I? The thought of getting ill, the thought of getting sick alone is scary. The thought of, right now, we don't know when we're going to be able to walk out of a house like we used to, go out in groups, going to see our family, going to see our friends, going for parties, going for gatherings. We don't know when it's going to happen again. So there's a lot of fear. So, and all this creates some sort of mental pain, mental anguish, disappointment. So my point is that every time we think about it, it creates a lot of anxiety in us. And even if it doesn't, over time it will. Okay? So at the bottom, it says that that's who we are. The first two lines says who we are. We want pleasant things, and we don't want unpleasant things. At the bottom, it says that bodhisattvas are different. Bodhisattvas work for the welfare of all beings. They accept suffering. When you work for beings, you have to accept their suffering. In order to benefit someone, in order to help other beings, bodhisattvas have to take on their suffering. They have to absorb the suffering. How do they absorb the suffering? First, they have to find the skillful ways to reach out to them. So enlightened beings from the high, some are enlightened beings, some are totally enlightened beings. What happens is they manifest as emanate out. Some bodhisattvas are trained through their practice. So they over years of retreats, over lifetimes of retreats, they evolve into a true bodhisattva. And what happens is their mindset is they're like an activist, a spiritual activist. So when they are born, their concern is for others. It's because it's natural. So they would help others. They will find helping others is a social cause for them. It's a spiritual cause for them, whatever it is. So there's two ways of bodhisattvas. By the way, bodhisattva has multiple meanings. Bodhisattva is firstly a level of attainment, an enlightened being, and then it's also a spiritual path of achieving enlightenment. So there's two meanings to it. If you're not clear about what I've just said, it may not have come up very clear, please ask. Okay, let me see. Chung, you asked this, is Mara the same as Yama? Sorry, I said Mara earlier. What I meant was Yama. I kind of confused the two. No, it's not the same. Is it the same? It's not the same, right? It's not the same. Yama could be Hindu, as in Tenzin Jamka says this. No, Yama is in this case, in the poem, okay, we're not talking of the pantheon of the deities right now. We're talking of the poem, and in this case, when it I pay homage to Yamataka, whose wrath is opposed to the great lord of death. This part is symbolic. Okay, it's representing the opposition against the deity. Yamataka opposes death and impermanence. All right. Okay, let me continue on. Okay, then it says, yes, we are cowards, we are miserable still. But the brave bodhisattvas accept suffering gladly and gain from their courage a true lasting joy. So what happens is, for us, when we want to focus out to help others, it's contrived. It is contrived at the beginning because, it's not natural. Not because it's not a natural part of us. It's not. That's not what I meant. It means that, am I still alive? We are, right? Yeah. So it means that we have spent many lifetimes being selfish, having the self-cherishing mind very strong. So we create all sorts of karmas, and some of the karmas are reinforcing this self-cherishing mind. All right. So what happens is, but we want happiness, and all of the self-cherishing mind and all of our habits from many lifetimes of being selfish, self-cherishing, okay, or being self-cherishing, has created cause for this life, and for the circumstances, for the sufferings that we're experiencing now. It's created all the unpleasant situations that we experienced in this life right now, or rather before this, in this life that we have experienced up to now, and in the future, was created before. It's by us. It's created by us, and hence. But we don't want those things, but we did it. We did it. I saw one of the commentary. I read one of the commentaries. They give a lot of visuals. They say some of the commentaries are very interesting because they give you visuals. It's like an arrow maker who crafts arrows, and then he gets struck by the arrow himself. It's like a weapon maker. When the weapon maker, arrow is a weapon. Okay, I forgot what's the other visual already. But anyway, what I do recall is like an arrow maker who crafts, as for a living, he crafts weapons, and then one day he gets attacked by the person who wields a weapon made by him. So this is symbolic of karma. It's symbolic of what's karma. Karma is actions, and also the results of actions, the consequences of actions. So although we don't want all those situations, we don't want the arrow to hit us, we don't want the result of actions to come back to us, but it does. Okay, but bodhisattvas will gladly accept suffering, obstacles, problems for the sake of others. They have that kind of mental attitude. So that's why the description for them is courage, brave. For us, it's coward. It's not a put down. The language is strong, but it is reflection of the mental attitude, the difference in the mental attitude. So everybody understand that, all right? So hello, Kelvin. Nice of you to join us. We're doing a very traditional teaching today on wheel or sharp weapons. So we're going on the initial few verses. All right. And because the bodhisattvas, the bodhisattva peacock, thrives on poison, thrives on benefiting others, and taking on the suffering, while other beings who are self-cherishing will not. So what happens is, but you see, when you see the cause of all our actions come from the self-cherishing mind. This is the whole purpose of this texting, is to tell you that whatever experience you have, everything actually boils down to the self-cherishing mind. Everything comes from that. all your problems, all your difficulties, all your mental afflictions, all your delusions, all your problems, all your obstacles, all your the bad things that happen to you, the negative circumstances, the places where you're reborn in, the difficulties you endure, comes from the self-cherishing mind. So while the bodhisattvas, what happens is they have overcome the self-cherishing mind because they are focusing on others. And because they focus on others, this text tells you they found a lasting joy. All right? And it goes on further. And because the peacocks thrive on such fare, on the suffering, on the difficult situations, and in order to benefit others. But if we try to do the same thing, we cannot take it. We cannot stand it. In order for us to, we burn out. In order for us to, do practice, do a retreat, 1 week retreat, cannot focus. Doing something virtuous cannot focus, so difficult. I want to go home. Where's my, I want to watch something. I want to eat my favorite asam laksa. I miss my mother. I miss my pillow. And then I'm making it a little funny, but just to give you a visual what this is about. Okay, for us, if you want to do, a lot of people come up to some. I mean, to a lot of people want to do Dharma work also. I understand that, and then people would come up and say, "Oh, wow, I really admire you. Can do Dharma work, can give up all and do Dharma." We make it sound like we gave up everything and run off in the jungle and meditate for the rest of our lives. It's just Dharma work. So all of us can do Dharma work. So we start a little at a time, and then we improve over time. So it says here, cowardly beings like crows were to try. Because they are greedy, they might still lose their life. All right? There is a commentary at the back. Now let's go to it. Let's give you a better explanation. I don't think I give you a fully good one. Unless one has trained one's mind in initial and medium levels of motivation, one will never achieve minor thought and cannot take suffering and so forth as a path. Only the brave bodhisattva who has already undergone these trainings can take suffering as a path. Longing desire is similar to poisonous plants. If cowardly crow should eat poison, it would kill him. Similarly, if an unqualified person attempts this great path, he might sever his chance for release. In order to take longing desire as a path, one must be free of selfish concerns. This is especially important to anyone who wishes to take lust as a path in tantric practice. So what this means is that, I understand the visual already then. Is when we want to do all the exotic tantric deities like Vajrayogini, we want to gain attainments from it. And when we engage in the practice of Vajrayogini, why we get initiation, we do the practice, we do the mantra, why we don't see any result? Why? It's because we have not developed the correct motivation for it yet. We have not purified enough and accumulated the merits. So that's why purification practice, that's why preliminary practice is very important. And that's why we need to ground ourselves in lamrim, the knowledge, so that when we do tantric practice, we know what kind of motivation to have when engaged. When we talk of have a bodhicitta motivation, an altruistic motivation, what does that mean? All sanctioned means, benefiting all sanctioned means. What? Put everyone in front of us, the whole world in front of us and meditate? No. What does that mean? So that's very important. Okay, that's why when we engage in tantric practice, this is how I'm going to equate it with tantric practice, because when we want to engage in tantric practice, one of the higher practices, we must know the basics of what bodhicitta is. We must know the lamrim, the steps and stages all the way, from death and impermanence, karma, the opportune conditions, the preciousness of human life, and so forth. All right? So we must know all the way, at least have an understanding of the path before we engage in Tantra or all the exotic deities. Because when we go straight into it, it's not that we will die. We will not die when we go into unprepared. What happens is we don't get the result. And what happens is when we don't get the result, what will die? Our practice will die because we will give it up. All right? So let me know if this makes sense or if you find it insightful. I hope it does. So it's very important to have an understanding of all this. All right? How can someone who cherishes self more than others take lust and such dangerous poisons for food? If he tried like a crow to use other delusions, he would probably forfeit his chance for release. So bodhisattvas, in accordance to the practice of Tantra, will utilize negative emotions in our meditation to gain enlightenment, to gain attainments. That's what Tantra is about. That's what the deity is about. That's what Vajrayogini is about, is to transform your desire into enlightenment, into bodhicitta actually, into your lust and desire, into lust and desire for all beings. No, not lust, but compassion, great compassion for all beings, altruism. All right. So in order to achieve that, you need to train first. So this is what this text is about. And this is very, very special, this text, because it is very clear. As you read on, it's very clear all the problems, all the delusions, all the mental afflictions in each verse. And it's applicable at their time, Dhammarashita and Tisha's time, which is about 1,000 years ago, and now. All right? So the Dharma is, as they say, it's timeless. And thus, bodhisattvas likened to peacocks, they live on delusions, these poisonous plants, transforming them into essence of practice. They thrive in the jungle of everyday life. Whatever is presented, they always accept, while destroying the poison of clinging desire. So he goes on the master goes on to say that bodhisattvas, like peacocks, are like peacocks. What they do is they eat the poisonous plants. So they take on these negative emotions within them. They consume their own, through their meditation, through their practice, through their attainments, consume all these negative emotions and change it into practice by the practice of Vajrayogini. For us, will be Vajrayogini, or whatever practice, tantric practices we will in the future engage in, what we plan to engage in, will transform these negative emotions into the very fuel that will transforming the essence of practice into attainments. For Vajrayogini, you will gain bodhicitta, you will gain realization emptiness, you will gain Kechara paradise, which is there's three Kechara paradise lah. Ultimate Kechara paradise, outer Kechara paradise, which is the pure land. When we die, we ascend, or in this life we fly up into the air. You know, there are masters who, through the practice of Vajrayogini, have flown up into the air and took their body along into Kechara paradise. And some have, middling one is when they die, Vajrayogini comes. And then the most lazy one, which is most likely you and me, would be after 14 lifetimes. All right? Any questions so far about what I've just read? No? Good. Everybody clear? Or I put you guys to sleep already. It's 10:14. Too full from a heavy dinner? Just kidding. Okay. Uncontrollably wandering through rounds of existence is caused by our grasping at egos as real. This ignorant attitude heralds the demon of selfish concern for our welfare alone. We seek some security for our own egos. We want only pleasure and shun any pain. But now we must banish all selfish compulsion and gladly take hardship for all others' sake. All our sufferings derive from our habits, our selfish delusions we heed and act out. As all of us share in this tragic misfortune, which stems from our narrow and self-centered ways, we must take all our sufferings and miseries of others and smother our wishes of selfish concern. Should the impulse arise now to seek our own pleasure, we must turn it aside to please others instead. For even if loved ones should rise up against us, we must blame our self-interest and feel it's our due. Okay, so it goes on already. So it goes on to explain our current situation, you and I and everybody in this world right now. And this is an inward looking situation. We're not talking of just our external, it's inward, it's a mental conditioning. All right. And the reason why we cannot control we cannot even control our emotions. When someone tells us something we don't like, or we experience a situation we don't like, we lash out, we get emotional, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get jealous, we are lazy, we think about ourselves, we're not concerned, we don't care, we just couldn't care less. So what happens is, if we cannot even control that, how are we going to control our rebirth? So that's why when we're going to pass away, we think that, oh, because I don't kill, I don't steal, I don't do anything harmful outwardly, we're going to go to a good place. So what's the cause? So that means all the people, everyone goes to a good rebirth? No. Because ultimately, what takes the rebirth is the mind. And what's the emotions? What plagues the mind is the negative emotions that we carry from life to life. And it's from these negative emotions that some lifetimes we act out very negatively, sometimes we don't act out very negatively, but we play it up again and again. It says here, because at the bottom of everything, at the core of everything, which is a very subtle thing, not many people will fully get this, is our self-cherishing mind. We know we are selfish, but we think, oh, sometimes I think about my mother, or I think about my father, I think about my boyfriend, my girlfriend. I care about them. I'm a nice person. Are you sure you're caring for them or for you because they benefit you? That's the thing. That everything, because we are not attained, we are not selfless. Even the people we care for, there's a trace of selfishness. There's a trace of self-cherishing. Okay, right at the core of it. So this text is attacking that part of your mind, that part where it's self-cherishing, and it's a very subtle thing. So you have to bear with me to understand this. All right. Ask away any questions. All right. So it calls this the demon. This text calls it a demon. This self-cherishing, this ignorant attitude is ignorant because, why is it ignorant? It's not knowing the true nature of yourself. Actually, the self doesn't exist. That's what the Buddha said. That's what the Buddha said. It exists. You don't actually exist, your actual self, as the way you perceive it, because we perceive it as something very solid and it requires protection. It requires a lot of things, a lot of work. We need food. No, sorry. We need praise. Otherwise, it feels insecure. We need what else? We need a lot of pleasure. We need holidays. We need designer items. We need a husband, a wife, a lover. We need a lot of friends, so it feels secure. It feels needed. It feels confident. It feels it is there. It feels secure. This is what this is talking. It's very subtle. I hope I'm being able to penetrate this. All right. So, but the very fact there's no questions means I'm not very successful though. And we seek some security for our own egos. You see, the ego, this solid sense of self in us, is highly insecure. And each of us express this insecurity in a different way. As I just explained, some of us, we need a lot of money, material items to feel secure. Some of us need a lover. Some of us need to be praised, to be stroked. Some of us needs company. We need a lot of friends. We need lovers. We need some of us is not any of that, but it needs to be a repetition, meaning it has to be something that's comfortable, a situation that's comfortable for it to feel secure. So that's why it says, we seek some security for our own egos. All right, we want only pleasure, so we end up doing things to seek pleasure, to seek comfortable situations, to seek, you know, but we shun all the situations that we perceive as uncomfortable. Perceive only is just a perception. The ego perceives that it's uncomfortable, that's not nice, that's not me, that's not for me, you know. So it's only perception. But now we must banish all selfish concern. When you, okay, I've seen some, suddenly popped up some questions here. How do we differentiate between self-cherishing mind and self-grasping mind? They go together hand in hand. Okay, I won't at this point. I won't separate them. You have something to say? I won't separate them. There's a very I remember Rinpoche did explain. I don't think I need to get back to you on this. There is a difference between grasping, and cherishing. There is a subtle difference. At the root of it, usually is they use interchangeable, but I remember there's a subtle difference. Okay, Mr. Lam, let me read up for you. Mr. Lam says, question, Pastor, is it correct to say that the 8 worldly concerns feed our self-cherishing mind? Oh, definitely. Everything about the eight worldly dharmas, the 8 worldly concerns is about the self-cherishing mind, because what is it? It's about being comfortable. It's about being praised. You're happy when you're praised. You're not happy when you're insulted. Okay. Let me rephrase. Sorry for the interruption earlier. Mr. Lam, you asked about 8 worldly concerns and whether it feeds the self-cherishing mind. That's exactly, you hit it on the nail. That's the 8 attitudes of a self-cherishing mind, which is being happy when you are comfortable, being unhappy when you are not, being happy when you're giving a gift, being happy when you're not, being happy when you praise, and all that, you know. So the idea is, the point about this is that it has to be reinforced. It has to be secure, because the ego is usually insecure. All right, it has to be pleased. It has to be stroked. It has to be given things. You know, each of us manifests our self-cherishing mind in a very different way. Some people it's material items. Some people it's company. Some people it's being comfortable. Some people it's being, getting what they want, being right, being correct. Some people is being praised. Many people have different ways of expressing the self-cherishing mind. One is not better than the other or worse than the other. It's just different manifestation, Rinpoche said. All right. Okay. So where was I? I was at self-cherishing mind. So we want pleasure and we don't want pain. So the text urges us at the beginning to banish all selfish compulsion and take up the welfare of all beings. It says take up the hardship of all beings. It's slightly on the neck. I would say it's a negative, but that's the language is used, but is to focus out. Basically, it means to focus out to benefit others. In order to be really happy, in order to be to develop attainments, to develop the Mahayana mind, which is altruistic mind for others. We have to train ourselves in that. All our sufferings comes from our habits, our selfish delusions we heed and act out. What's a selfish delusion? A selfish delusion is all our negative qualities, negative emotions, our attachments, the attachments that make us jealous, that make us hoard, that makes us selfish, stingy, unkind, that makes us jealous, that makes us, do all the things, being rude, steal, all the negative qualities come from cherishing ourselves. So it comes, and all this comes from the habits that we have developed over a whole, since when we were very young. And some of it is cultural, that was meaning it's being instilled from culture. more of attachments rather than really negative, but it's attachments. And some of them are because we feel a huge insecurity about one. Usually we don't have all this different we don't have all at the same equal amount on. Usually one would particular will be stronger in us. Perhaps it's our need for security in terms of material items. In these days it's highly that security from material items, security. Some people is from having a partner, having a husband, a wife, makes us feel secure. And when we don't have, and when we want it so much, we chase away people, and then we become very unhappy. Or sometimes we just don't have the karma for it, and then it's a vicious cycle. So all comes from this, as it says, the habits of lifetimes. Yeah, definitely lifetimes. Whatever we do in this life is a reflection of a previous life. Okay, so we continue every lifetime, because whatever we're doing now is nothing new. It's always a rehash of something we did in a previous life. And sometimes we go slightly off, or we do slightly more, we do more Dharma, so we improve, we purify more, then our destinies change, our karma changes. But we meet some obstacles at the beginning. The obstacle comes from what? From many lifetimes of self-cherishing mind, of myself, of doing actions that harm others directly and indirectly. Right? And yeah. So we all of us, all sanctioned beings of all the 6 realms, from the highest devas that you don't know, you can't see. Some of them you know by reputation, like the Jade Emperor, Krishna, whatever it is. They all have different names according to their true culture. You notice one thing, in every culture on earth, everyone have a somewhat similar pantheon, all a pantheon of deities in divinities. And then we have, so, and they roughly fit into roughly the same kind of structure. That's what I noticed lah. So I have also a belief in spirits. Almost every culture will have a belief in some sort of spirit, and we just have different names for it. But generally, it's the same. That's why you can translate ghosts into any language on earth. All right, and so my point in telling you is all these beings, whether we can see it or we cannot see it, whether we believe they exist or don't believe, all have the same problem, the self-cherishing mind. And all their problems, all their sufferings come from this. This is what it's trying to say here. All right, we share in the same fate. Which stems from our narrow and self-cherishing ways. We must take all our sufferings and miseries of others and smother our wishes for selfish concern. Should the impulse arise now to seek our own pleasure, we must turn it aside to please others instead. For even if loved ones should rise up against us, we must blame our self-interest and feel it's our due. So it's the start of what's to come already. This verse here tells you that when the moment you feel that you want to be selfish, you want to think about yourself, you want to take advantage of someone, you want to do something selfish, we should stop there and then and do something opposite instead. So for example, if we have a moment where we are miserly, there's a moment of miserliness arise in our mind. So instead of acting out of miserliness, we should give. So how do we give? There's so many ways. Pastor Naral has given you an excellent discourse on the 6 parameters, beginning with generosity, and that's one of them. And he has given all the different ways. It's not just about donating a check for here's 1 million. That's not the only way of generosity. There's so many ways to be generous of spirit, of being as a human being. All right, and so instead of acting out our selfishness, our self-cherishing ways, we act out the opposite. Okay? And it tells you, even when someone who loves you, who cares about you, harms us, we perceive a sort of harm, they scold us, they tell us off, they run away from us, the first thing it tells you is don't blame them, don't retaliate, don't do that. It tells you we must blame our self-interest. It actually comes from us. For a lot of people it's revolutionary, because immediately when someone, a loved one, the worst hurt we can experience is usually from a loved one. The most painful experience you can see is someone who cheats on us, who hurts us, a loved one, who stabs our back. It's the most painful experience. So it tells you, don't blame them, don't retaliate, blame yourself. Blame yourself, cherishing mine. It's revolutionary, isn't it? So it tells you to blame yourself. It's your fault. They are acting out on you. It's your karma. It's your due, and feel it's your due. So it's turning your whole world around. It's a paradigm shift. I just recently read about this term, paradigm shift. It's a whole change, because we're so used to, when someone hurts us, we retaliate. The moment someone, especially someone loved us, what we do is we get really angry, we'll scream bloody murder and make sure that the person is put in his place. Okay, we do something to retaliate, especially if someone who we care about, because it hurts us really deeply. Okay, let's go on. Let's read out the next few. When our bodies are aching and racked with great torment of dreadful diseases we cannot endure, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. Till now we have injured the bodies of others. Hereafter, let's take on what sickness is theirs. Depressed and forlorn, when we feel mental anguish, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from wrongs we have done. Till now we have deeply disturbed back on. I am so sorry, but for the interruption now, let me rewind a little bit. I was reading 3 verses from verse 10 to verse 12. All right. When our bodies are aching and racked with great torment of dreadful diseases we cannot endure, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. Till now we have injured the bodies of others. Hereafter, let's take on what sickness is theirs. Depressed and forlorn, when we feel mental anguish, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. Till now we have deeply disturbed the minds of others. Hereafter, let's take on this suffering ourselves. When hunger or violent thirst overwhelms us, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. Till now we have kept what we had without sharing. We have plundered and stolen and lured people on. Hereafter, let's take from them hunger and thirst. Okay, these 3 verses, let's talk about it. The first one talks of disease. When we get ill, when we experience great pain, difficulties, when it comes to disease, when it comes to, a sickness that we're experiencing, what's the cause of it? The cause of it is we have injured the bodies of others. We have harmed someone else. We have harmed someone else. We have harmed in what way? Injured. So how, in this day and age, what harming others means? These days, we could be from killing someone. I don't think any of you kill, but we can eat meat. What do you think meat is? Meat comes from where? Meat comes from an animal. Meat comes from a sentient being, a being that lives, that feels pain. They experience pain, So when they die, they experience a lot of pain, a lot of mental anguish, a lot of fear. And part of you may not be the one killing it, although you ate it, but what happens is you contributed to it. The industry of meat doesn't come about without, someone supporting the industry, buying from it. So that's one way. And so we experience disease, we experience suffering from a cause, and that cause is harming others. All right. And usually is that, and also especially for people who these days, a lot of people who, you know, what's scary is people who butcher, people who are in the butcher, I won't say butchering industry, in killing, hunting, hunting for sport, you know. So hence, we create the cause each time. Depressed and forlorn when we feel mental anguish. This is the way of sharp weapons reaching full circle upon us. Till now we have disturbed the mind. That means when we are frustrated, when we are unhappy, we're depressed about one thing or another. And the cause of whatever mental problem we have, what kind of mental problem is that? Depression. It could be depression. It could be frustration of a situation. You know, a particular situation, no matter how big or how small, can frustrate us to death. We get so worked up. And what's the cause of the frustration? It could be your family, it could be your job, it could be a situation you're in. For example, some people, a good example of mental anguish is some people who are extremely frustrated about being at home. You know, there are many people who, there's many people who are, you know, it's normal. Every day they're at home. So with this lockdown, it makes no difference. So there's no suffering. You know, like Pastor Nora sniggering there. For some people, it's like a huge. For me, it's difficult as well. For some people, it's huge. It's difficult and it's frustrating. They get worked up. They get emotional. They have to vent it out with their family members. They have to run off. They do something to distract their minds because they cannot stand it. It's so unbearable, this mental anguish. You see, the situation is the same, but the perception is different. And the perception for some people is mental anguish. All right, it's so bad, it's mental anguish. Although other people experiencing the same thing, it's normal. Oh, I cannot stay at home anymore. You know, they're screaming to themselves. So where's the cause? The cause of it says you disturb others. How do you disturb others? You created that in other people. You have frustrated other people before. You have irritated, you have purposely frustrated other people. You created a cause, meaning you did something to to make people feel that way about you or about a situation. So an example would be that you say something not nice about someone and then you create that in their mind. So that will create one cause to experience mental frustration, mental anguish. All right. The next one is hunger and thirst overwhelms us. All of us are. Okay, sorry about that. Where was I? I was talking about hunger and thirst, and I'm talking about situations. They could be a place you're born in, for example, in a war-torn country, or a place where, or economic situation where livelihood is difficult. Could be we all hungry. We always go to bed hungry. So the cause of it is we have plundered and stolen from others, lured people and in order to steal from them, in order to take advantage of them. So doing instead of telling you, oh, don't do that anymore, it tells you take on the suffering. Interesting the way it's phrased here. Whatever you experience the hunger, take it on. Take it on with the realization you've inflicted on others. So because when you plundered on other people, you've stolen from people, their livelihood, whatever they have comes from their livelihood. So the livelihood is and ultimately like it boils down to food and drink. So what happens is you have to experience the negative karma, and it manifested in a way that you will experience hunger and thirst. All right. So this can also mean livelihood. It doesn't have to be just food and drink. For some of us, we will have difficulty with livelihood, with job, with economic situations that even when the economy is good, we can't find a job, you know, or we get thrown out of a job all the time. we cannot secure a job. There are many causes, but one of the causes we have stolen from others. Okay, Mr. Lam, relating to verse 11, a person who suffers from dementia would have caused tremendous amount of mental anguish to another person in the previous life. Oh, okay, I'm back. Okay, Mr. Lam's question, whether dementia was a result of causing mental anguish in other people. I don't have clairvoyance, but from the symptom, it does look like that. But I wouldn't say for sure. It could be different reasons for different people. But ultimately, it's karma. All right, it's karma, meaning your actions. So whatever specific action that you cause mental anguish in others, or some other negative actions, you know, whatever it is ultimately your actions, ultimately, and that boils down to the self-cherishing mind. All right. And then, yeah, so I got two more before we end for today. No, three more. One, two, wait, I read to 12. Okay, three more, sorry. When we lack any freedom but must obey others, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. Till now we have looked down upon those who are lowly and use them as servants for our selfish needs. Hereafter, let's offer our service to others with humble devotion of body and life. When we hear only language that is foul and abusive, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. To now we have said many things without thinking. We have slandered and caused many friendships to end. Hereafter, let's censure all thoughtless remarks. Ooh, that was a powerful one. Don't you think? When we are born in oppressive and wretched conditions, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning full circle upon us from the wrongs we have done. To now, we have always had a negative outlook. We have criticized others, seeing only their flaws. Hereafter, let's cultivate positive feelings and view our surroundings as stainless and pure. Oh, these are very good ones. Okay, let's go back to the first, verse 13. When we lack freedom and must obey others. That means we're under someone's tyranny. It could be a job. It could be indentured to someone, and in a job where we feel we don't have freedom. It could be really slavery. It could be, we were smuggled as drug mules, whatever it is. This is a result of we look down on people, and we use people as a means to an end, meaning for servants. You manipulate people, use people for our benefit. Hereafter, let's offer our service to others with humble devotion. It even tells you from now on, practice humility. Do not use people. Do not manipulate people. Do not take advantage of people. Okay, instead you should offer your help, offer your service, be kind. So, because a lot of us have opportunity to use and to boss over someone else, to manipulate people. And I mean, with the deepest respects, people, when you have a person under you, for example, a maid, for example, a servant, and how you treat them will have karma. So when you treat them harshly and you demand them to work long hours and because you have power over them, and they feel, and it becomes not just a job. It feels like they're being used. They're being some of them are tortured, because there are a lot of cases where people are tortured, as servants, as maids, as help, okay, domestic help. So, because I don't know why, but I noticed this, a lot of people tend to vent their frustration on their domestic help. And there's a lot of cases where it's very bad, but they're rape, they are, you know, used, manipulated. So there's a lot of negative karma for coming from it, and then this is when you experience it. When you come back, you experience that you'll be in a similar situation, because they feel they've been enslaved. They feel they have been tortured. Sometimes they feel they have been manipulated. That feeling will come back to you, whatever scenario it is. It doesn't have to be, oh, you come back as a slave. It doesn't have to be. And lucky it comes back to you in this life, which most of the time does not. It comes to you back in a future life. All right. Either way, it will come back to you. So when you have done nothing like that, but you're experiencing that, it must come from somewhere. Okay, the cause was created somewhere in your previous life. Okay. Next is when you hear language that's foul and abusing, meaning people are always rude to you, always using harsh language on you. This is because you have not controlled your speech. It says here, you have said many things without thinking. It's not just not thinking, it's that you have not controlled your speech. You say things that hurt people, that damage people, that do a lot of split people apart. And that's why when it comes back to you, you always hear negative people are rude to you. And in fact, you don't have to look like from a previous life. If people are rude to you, why? What is, you think about it. What is it that encourages people being rude to you? If it's not, I'm not just talking one person, when it's across the board, a lot of people are not nice to you. Why? Where does it come from? What are you exhibiting? Your body language, what you're saying. Why do people shout at you? Usually when people shout at you, is it because everybody, are not happy you? Why? These are the questions we should contemplate if we encounter this a lot. All right? So that everything has a cause and reason for it. Hello, namaste, Gelong Tara Tamang. Nice to see you. All right, so all this have a cause and condition for everything we experience. And then when situations are difficult, when situations are bad, when we're born in the oppressive and wretched, when there's a situation where you're born, we have many effects. There's many right now because of this course, but there's many. If when you do one action, comes many results. One of the result is an environmental effect, and this environmental effect. When you're born in an oppressive and wretched situation, a difficult situation, in a place where it's war-torn, in a place where there's a lot of strife, perhaps a lot of violence, perhaps it's in a place where there's a lot of crime. All right. It is because we had a negative outlook. A negative outlook means what? When we see people in situations very negatively, and when we see it, we open our mouth and we criticize. We criticize people. We only see their flaws. We only see the problems in people because we are jealous, because we want to take advantage, because we want to put the person. Now I'm back on. Okay, where was I? I was on the 15th. That this is an environmental effect of a negative action, and that negative action is having a negative outlook on people, on situations, and especially about people, and criticize them. And the reasons why we criticize could be we are angry, we're spiteful, we want to shine because we want to be praised. We want to shine, that's why we criticize others. Whatever it is, it will create the environmental effect where we will be reborn in the places where there is war-torn, where oppressive, where there's a lot of crime, perhaps in a difficult neighborhood. We are very poor. The house, it's a shanty town. It's in a slum. So that is one of the results of criticizing other people, because we have negative. We only see flaws in people. All right. So I will end here for tonight before we get disconnected again, and I'll do dedication for tonight. And thank you very much. And I think Chung has posted something. I will read it. Thank you very much, Chung. And I will perhaps rephrase that in a easier to understand manner, if I can, if I can. Jaju senso rinpoche mage bana gyushe geba ya mami pa yang kone kodo pewa sho toni tonga rinpoche mage bana gyushe geba ya mami pa yang kone kodo pewa sho daso chine sabage wadi tanandruwa kodlang kampana jebo jozo lozon drapa yi tamping kurende sa she sho gewa gundo yana lamanda jemi joki pala long choche sada long ye on terna choni doji changi go pang yi to sho gewa di yuruda lama sangye ju huni chuwa chikya malupa de sala go ba sho shuja bo songa ba choso nama pewa la gege shama chiwa dan tuni malu shang sho dadan shenge do sunda jiwa slateni gewa lo san drapa yi tampari va gyu she ni mo dala sentala neme go in dala shin ya senta tu dala pa kontro sun jingi lo kontro so ngotro so kontro so ta shi sho choso lama ku so rap tu chi nau ka chi ju ge pa dan lo san ta wi jo mi sam so ge ru mu su tak tu ni gyu she kang ri ra we ko shin gam dan penan da wa malu kyong we chen re ze kwan tan zin kya so yi sha be se de pa tu dan gyu she hong to be ngotro malu pa de ne dala sa do so ko ran tan ba lo so na ge ba so shook that cell. Thank you very much and good night.